Salute to you all. The brave never fall. Self-love through freedom and connection. So feel free to connect to the brave never fall on these social media platforms. If you find anything of value in this following podcast, hit that like button, subscribe and share, and support the brave and bold tribe growing one purposeful soul at a time. How are you feeling? Take a moment to do a self-check-in for yourself. How are you feeling mentally? How are you feeling emotionally? How are you feeling physically? How are you feeling spiritually? Are you feeling balanced? Are you still journeying on an intentional, purposeful path? How are you feeling? Balancing yourself is a healthy, daily practice that will reliably keep you in harmony with your entire mind, body, heart, and soul. Clear your mind. Take a moment of silence for yourself. Right now, in the moment. You are here now. How are you feeling? We can blame no one but ourselves for the absence of self-love. When we're alone in our own solitude, dealing with all the struggles, all the complications, failures, disappointments, we have to come to terms with the fact that no matter what's going on in your life, we have to find a center, a balance. And that balance is usually within you. It's not so much what you're giving out, the energy, the potential that you have to fulfill whatever it is in life that you know will make you happy internally. If there's no equivalent to that internally, the external stuff that you do is essentially a lie. It's not matching up to who you really are inside. So ultimately, what that means is if we're not matching what we do externally with what we do internally, we are missing a great asset to fulfilling any purpose, and that's self-love. And that self-love is something that has to be focused on. No matter how much you think you can do in life, no matter what you know you can accomplish, if there's something inside of you that's missing, that is torn and fractured, you have to repair that first. You have to repair the things inside to get the full maximum potential out of everything that you know and what you've already done on the outside. That external conflict that you are facing is no doubt a mirror of what you're facing inside. If we can conquer things on the outside, on the external, we're able to overcome struggles and obstacles and things in our life and turn them into a positive. You know you can do it on the inside as well. The difference is on the external, we can mask it a lot better. On the internal, it's harder to run away from it because we have to live with it every single day. No one is responsible for your personal happiness. That duty is for each of us to create on our own, through experiencing life and all its wonders and all its tests. We are each born with the responsibility to find our way, to thrive, to make a difference, make our mark, love unconditionally, love ourselves unconditionally, to want and create nothing but the best for ourselves, to serve ourselves as we serve others, to stand tall when life is at its most difficult. We found the strength to keep moving, dreaming, and discovering more of our purpose, moment by grateful moment. It's not our birthright to accept a wounded heart as a sign of weakness, a curious mind as a sign of unintelligence, an exhausted body as a sign of forfeit, or a tested soul as an unfulfilled void, lifeless and directionless. It's our birthright to unlock the mysteries of ourselves in life and write or rewrite our stories to serve ourselves as needed. In life, you can't have happiness without having experienced sadness, and there's no sadness without happiness. This is a beautiful yet fearful balance, a fearful yet beautiful pattern, a spin cycle, a realization of our truths in life. The truth is, we may never be who we believe we should be, but what we should be should not cut us off from believing who we are. Life is now, not yesterday or tomorrow. The weight we carry, the burdens we haul, the fear we allow to corrupt our souls is gone, and yet have not yet arrived. Now is life. We control more than we imagine. We create more than we realize. We feel more than we are aware of. We see more than we believe we do. There is happiness in every saddened situation, hope in every moment, but only if we choose to feel it, see it, and ultimately create the happiness out of the sadness. Solitude is difficult, yet needed as well. For if we are not living for ourselves through self-love, we will always feel alone, even if we are not. Life, Episode 5, Smearing Black Ink Alone. Not everything in life will represent itself in the light. Sometimes in life we have to step back and understand that we have to actually face the darkness. That's part of life. We can, at the brightest time of the day, look to the sky and see the sun, and look at the clouds. We can appreciate life for what it is. We can feel what that is. But we can't go to the ocean, look at the water, and see all the way down to the darkness, the darkest, unexplored parts of the ocean. Can't see it. We can see the water, but we can't see it. Just like we can't look through the atmosphere and see the universe. There's always going to be things that are hidden, and as human beings, we're blinded to. And on an individual level, I feel life represents itself that way in each of us. Where it's just things we can't see, or just things we can't feel, places we can't go, things we'll never touch, people we'll never meet. And there will be unexplored things in our bodies when we die that weren't tapped into, or maybe tapped into too much. Maybe we looked at a certain part of our lives a little bit too much for too long, or we didn't look at a certain part of our lives enough at all. We didn't even know where to look. Which is why when we say explore life and view your life as a happy adventure and life is a fun adventure, is because if you just withdraw within to yourself and figure out the things that you never thought about, which is why knowledge is so important, why the mind is so important, because the more you expand upon your knowledge and your wisdom, the more experience you get from life, you can start piecing together puzzle pieces that were hidden. There's an extra companion piece to whatever puzzle you're putting together. There's always another puzzle. And the fun of life is trying to figure out what those things are and realizing them and putting them into context and really understanding that whatever you find and unlock in yourself, it's been there. And we can start asking ourselves questions of why is it there? Is it there just because of genetics? Is it there because of some memory? Is it there because of some disorder? Is it there because of some situation where you failed, where it wouldn't be there if you would have succeeded? Some relationship that would have failed, but it did succeed. We can look at them in all different dynamics and all different types of range of a spectrum of human existence as far as emotion goes and how our memories and our experiences influence everything that's happened in our life. It's reshaping our DNA to the point that we can pass certain traits down to our children, just like they were passed on to us, that, you know, you literally create it into our DNA and pass it on to other, to existing generations, or future generations, excuse me. The term smearing black ink is something I used to hear a lot when I was younger, and it's not something people say often, but it's just a term that I hear a lot in art. You hear it a lot if you randomly, and it's usually obscure and nobody's really heard it. I heard it a lot in songs. I've seen it a lot in poetry, and it's stuck with me. I think the first time I heard it, it was in a song. I think they're by the Postal Service, and it's just a line in there, smearing black ink, and I remember that sticking in my mind. And I'm a tattoo artist, and in tattooing, you know that you cannot mess up. You mess up, it's going to look horrible. If you smear the ink on an open wound, you'll literally tattoo that wound. That sort of deal. Or if you're writing in pen, I remember when I was growing up, I wanted to learn how to draw better. And my father told me, well, if you really want to learn how to draw and not mess up, don't use a pencil and don't use an eraser. Never erase. Just always, whatever the outcome is, just do it. So from age 16 to around when I was around, into my mid 20s, I really just did black and white ink art. Now I would color it in afterwards if I wanted to add some color, but there was no erasing. You made a mistake, you had to figure out a way to make that mistake look like it wasn't a mistake. And that really was how I learned how to draw, trust myself that I wouldn't make a mistake, be focused enough and disciplined enough not to make a mistake. And we're not talking about doing stick figures here. I was doing anime, and I was purposely doing very hard things where people can recognize it and they can see the mistake instantaneously. And eventually that is how I got into tattooing, because with tattooing it's the same thing. You're using black ink, different color inks on different types of skin, and doing different type of patterns, and you can use a stencil. I prefer freehand when I'm doing my tattooing. I think they look more unique, but it's indelible. It's in there and you cannot make a mistake. And I love that because it makes it so much more priceless of an outcome when you can go into something knowing you can't make a mistake And you often do make tiny little mistakes here and there. Not so much with the tattooing. This is just drawing in general, or doing anything, any activity where you're going in and you're trying not to make a mistake, even with a test you're taking, whatever it is. You go into these things and you're trying not to make a mistake, and your mind is very conscious that you're trying not to make a mistake. And we can apply these to relationships as well. You try not to make mistakes. If you are compassionate and you're empathetic and you really care about the relationship, you're not trying to make mistakes. You just are. You're not trying to be bad at communication, or, even if you're with your boss, you're not trying to do a bad job. You're not trying to be a bad churchgoer. You're not trying to be a bad student, or a family member or friend. You're trying to be the best person you can be. If you're conscious and that's something that means something to you, that aligns with your values and your principles. But there is a point where there's the opposite end of that. And I always like that about smear black ink, where you get frustrated in the middle of the process and you realize you've made a few mistakes. And instead of trying to correct the mistakes with what you've already drawn, or if you're learning how to write a new language and you're using ink, you get frustrated, and what do? You crumple it up, you throw it away, or you take your hand and you smear it. You see kids do this all the time. You ever see a kid who's trying to paint for the first time and they don't like the way it looks? So what do? They'll take their hands. Babies do this a lot. They'll take their hands and they'll just completely just wipe away the picture, and there's paint all over their hands, all over their face. Or if there's ink, they get mad and they want to wipe it away. Go away. That's what that action is. And that's what I always viewed smear black ink, is when you are going into something that you've created for yourself, or maybe you haven't. Either way, you're in a situation, and yes, you've made mistakes. Yes, there are things you regret. Yes, there's people you need to forgive. You need to forgive yourself, depending on what the situation or the experience is. But instead of continuing on and correcting the mistakes and trying to get the best you can out of that situation, it's taken in terms of drawing a picture. Again, when I used to draw with black ink and I would make a mistake, was it frustrating? Damn right it was frustrating. It used to piss me off. But instantly my creative mind started going into, well, what can I do to make this look better? It's like a tattoo cover up. Somebody comes in and says, hey, can you cover this up? They're frustrated. They want it covered up. And you think to yourself, okay, let's enjoy this process. What can I do to make this look better? And usually it's something, you come up with something so creative because you have to. And it was the same way with those drawings. I remember, okay, Michael, you can do the easy thing, is tear this page out and act like it never exists in your sketchbook, or we're going to fix this fucking picture right now. We're going to fix this right now. We're going to do something and enhance this picture in some way. And I would find a way to do it. And it would usually bring out something to me that I had never seen going into that process had I not made the mistake. I would think to myself, wow, I am so glad I didn't just throw this away. I'm so glad I didn't, quote unquote, smear the ink. I didn't give up and wipe it away and try to go back and recreate it. I would say, wow, this turned out better than I thought. And it would open up new ideas in there. And I would start figuring out and looking at things in the distance to kind of counteract what I did in the picture. And it would end up so much better than I had ever envisioned. You have to be patient, understanding. You have to trust the process. You have to trust yourself. And you have to accept the outcome for whatever it is. Or you can just quit and throw it all away. And I chose in everything to look at that as, didn't turn out the way that you thought. Because sometimes it doesn't. I would go into the drawing and I would say, oh my goodness, this is turning out so great. And I would make a mistake. And I'll look back at it 2 days later and be like, that drawing is ass. It just doesn't look good. But at the time, I thought I was on point. I'm like, this looks amazing. This looks absolutely amazing. I used to do that on tattoos when I was early on, trying to tattoo myself and understand how to do it, because obviously you have to do an apprenticeship, and best way to do it, you can practice on tattooing oranges or something, but ultimately you got to tattoo some skin, and you're gonna fuck up. And I would be like, oh, this looks amazing, and then over time you realize, no, it didn't look that good. It looked great for what you could do at the time. And the more I tattoo, every time I do one, I get so much better. But it comes from experience. It comes from me trusting myself. I know that I can put together a nice tattoo now and not have to stress over the fact that I might mess up. because I trust myself. I trust my equipment. I trust the process, and I'm patient with myself, and I understand that I'm going to mess up. And if I do, I know I can fix it. That's all internal stuff. I'm not smearing the ink and saying, screw this tattoo, I give up. I'm saying, no, I need to learn where I messed up. What was my mind like? Was I patient? Was I understanding with myself? Did I give myself some wiggle room to mess up and have enough room to make it better and to enhance it? Or did I get frustrated and give up and get down on myself and blame other people and become a victim of my own process? We sabotage ourselves in life sometimes by doing that. And there are a lot of lessons to be learned through patience with ourselves. That if we get in a situation where we're feeling like we can't do more than what the situation is giving us, like we want to do more, but we just kind of seem like we're capped off, or we're in a relationship with somebody and it's just, there's a little bit of a rift, or there's bad communication, or you with your boss and you seem like that raise you wanted was right around the corner, and you get so pissed off, you go inside the office and you kick it open and you say, hey, I need that raise. And he or she looks at you and says, we were going to give it to you next week. And you step back and say, oh, okay. Enjoy your lunch. Sorry about that. Cringy, isn't it? That's not what we want. We do not want to get to a place in life where when we do things like, again, as an example, if you do a photo or a drawing and you want it to be perfect, it should be perfect. I look at all of my drawings now, and I with experience and knowing what I know now, looking back at them, they look like dog shit to me. But at the time, I was blinded by what I knew or what I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. At the time, I only knew what I could do. And what I could do is forever stuck on those pages. And I finished each one of those drawings in my sketchbook, and I would initial them, and that was what I had. That is what I had. Looking back on it now, I can say, look at all the mistakes. But it took time. It took a long time. We're not always going to be able to see the big picture in the moment. And some people say when you look at the sky, you can't see the universe during the day because of the atmosphere, but at night you can see everything. You still can't see all of it. You can see the ocean floor when you get inside of a submersible and go diving. You still can't see all of it. There's always going to be something that you cannot see. You have to trust that it's there. You have to trust that it's there. We don't want to get to a place where we're alone, hoping that things work out. We're sabotaging the relationships. We got to look at all the mistakes that we make, but accept them as teaching tools. Accept them as a part of the process. We can't get so impatient that we want things to be perfect that we lose the one thing that has the potential of being the most perfect thing that we could have, the most perfect relationship, the most perfect job. We have to trust that we can detach and get to a place where we can say, this is the time to go. This is the time to change something. But again, the common denominator will always be us. We have to trust that just because we make the decision doesn't mean it's the right one. It just feels like the right one in that moment. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have to live and trust ourselves. If we don't trust ourselves, we make ourselves untrustworthy. Just like if we don't trust other people, we make them untrustworthy. We have to trust something. We have to trust the process of life. We have to trust that just because we have the potential to make a mistake doesn't mean we don't have the potential to correct that mistake. Just because we say things that we don't mean, do things that we regret, doesn't mean we don't have the time and the space and the place in life to actually be able to grow. Life is about living and freely, naturally, not forcing your growth. To accepting and understanding the power of your growth. To understand that mistakes are going to happen. Failures and disappointments are going to happen. But it's how you react to it. Are you reacting to it irrationally, with impatience or not understanding the process? Or do you want to go into it feeling like every single time you get in a situation, the best option is to quit, to smear the ink, tear the page, throw it away, set it on fire? It's worthless. The most important things in your life won't have those types of ideals in place when you go into them. Because you'll trust yourself. You'll know this person is the best person for you. But you can't force them to feel the same way about you. You could feel you have the best job, but your boss just doesn't want you to work there. You could feel you have the best car, but it keeps on breaking down on you. Just because we want things in our life doesn't mean it's going to work out the way we should believe that they should. We always think this should work out. This could work out. This would work out. But is it? The better question is, why isn't it? And because you're the common denominator in there, what are you doing? Hold yourself accountable. As Jocko Willink says, extreme ownership. Hold yourself accountable for your actions, for what you say, for what you do. Do your best. Allow the mistakes to happen. Build upon the mistakes. Correct the mistakes. You do the best that you can for what you're given. There's no time to second guess anything in real time. You have to trust yourself that you're doing the right thing in the moment. There'll be plenty of time to say you're sorry to that person. There'll be plenty of time to forgive that person. There'll be plenty of time to find another job. There'll be plenty of time to replace that car. But in the moment, you have to deal with what you're dealing with. And you have to, again, I'm going to say this because I feel like it's a pattern. It's something you can put in a routine in your mind. Trust the process of your life. Trust your process of your relationship. Trust your process of your career. Trust the process of your family, of your friends, anything that is aligned with your purpose in life. Otherwise, you will be smearing black ink alone. You will have a picture when you go back and look at it, a drawing, a letter, because we don't, ink is ink, right? You ever write a letter and you look back on it, if you can read some of the letters and notes you used to write either to yourself in a journal or write something to someone else in a birthday card, you go back and look at it and you're like, I don't even know how the hell I wrote that. It's like another person wrote it. However, the ink isn't smeared. You wrote it. You did the best that you could at the time. You meant what you said in the moment. And a lot of times, just because things have changed, if you went back in time, you probably would say the same thing again. Because you trusted yourself in that moment to do it without even realizing you did. And maybe those relationships and those things and the places that you visited in the past, when you go back in your mind, they may conjure up extreme emotion in the positive area and extreme emotion in the negative area, depending on what you think about it. But they happen. And we can look back at it and say, okay, if I went back there, would I do the same thing again based on who I was at the time without being able to change anything other than the perception of I know a little bit more now than I did then? Would I change anything? And I have a hard time going back and saying that I would change anything permanently. I can go back in my mind and say I would have done this differently. But if I had to really go back in time and do it, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it. I change it in my mind, but I wouldn't change it in reality. Because in reality, not smearing that ink and quitting and saying, maybe I should have just walked away when that person walked up to me and instead of getting in a relationship. I don't want to change that. Every single memory I have is extremely important to who I am right now. Smearing the ink erases a lifetime of who I am. I can't go back and change everything. I don't want to go back and change a single word. What I want to do is grow and learn from it so I don't make the same mistakes again, and I can teach people. Again, help people in life. Pass on the knowledge that I have to other people so they have a better chance of not making the mistakes that I made. We can't erase every bad situation that's happened to our life and just keep all the good stuff. What would your life be like if you only had good experiences? If you just completely wiped out every bad experience, every bad emotion that you ever had, your perspective of life in reality would be very skewed unless somehow you were able to do it in real time. It would be very hard for you to get through a day if you just suddenly went back and in real time suddenly just have every bad thing that's ever happened to you in your life, every bad relationship, everything taken away. You would be skin and bones. There'd be nothing there to give you any perspective in life. You wouldn't even know what fulfillment would mean for you at that point. It's balance. You need that misery, that hardship that you went through. That is so desperately needed. The sadness, the feeling of being alone. You need moments of smearing that black ink, having quit. Otherwise, you don't know the sensation of not quitting. You don't know the power that comes with completing a process of being patient and understanding with someone in a relationship. You won't know what that means unless you go through it. You got to go through the gauntlet. You have to go through the gauntlet. You have to come back on the other side saying, I experienced that and now I fucking get it. I understand why this person is so important to me. I understand why this career is so important to me. I understand why this thing is so important to me, because it brings me purpose. I can have these things and make mistakes and they're not going anywhere because I'm patient with the process. I'm aligned with these things, these people, these places. These are the things that define me. These are the things that define my values for who I am. And if they're not in alignment, then I need to be able to understand why. The only way I could do that is by knowing how to get through the process and not quitting and giving up and then scratching your head later and saying, I wonder what would have happened if I had just completed the process without smearing the ink and giving up. You have to complete the process. You have to give it your all. You can't give up and run away every single time something bad happens in your life. Every single time something shows up in your life that you can't figure out, that you can't see visibly. Again, if you're in the middle of the day, you look up at the sun and you're trying to look at the universe through the sun, you're going to be blinded. If you're standing on the beach looking through the water and you're trying to see the ocean floor, people are going to look at you like you're psychotic. It's impossible. So we have to get it out of our head that just because we want things to be possible doesn't mean that it is. Reality doesn't guarantee you the impossible. Reality only guarantees you the possible, the probable. You have to do your part as the common denominator in your story, as the protagonist in your story. You have to do your part to see what you can see and do what you can do in real time. Accept the fact you're going to make mistakes, that the person you're with is going to make mistakes. Your friend, your lover, your family members, they will make mistakes just like you. And unless you want to be alone, you have to accept that from other people. Same with your career. You're going to make mistakes. Your boss is going to make mistakes with handling you. You can't give up. You have to continue doing what you need to do for yourself, as well accept what is going on around you. Jocko Willink calls it playing the game. You have to play the game. You can't go into the boss's office and kick down the door and say, I want a raise. And he or she tells you that you were due for a raise literally next week. We were going to surprise you with a bonus. But you were so damn impatient, now they're looking at you like, we should just get rid of this person. You can't be so anxious to get the car of your dreams where you bankrupt yourself trying to get it. Or if you're in a relationship with someone and you want so much more out of them, but you're not giving them the opportunity to grow and allowing them to be the person they need to be for you. They're working on themselves for you, and you should be working on yourself for them. Investment for investment. What you want may be just around the corner, but it takes patience, and the process has to play itself out before you smear the ink and quit and give up and tear it up, throw it in the trash and set it on fire. Because odds are we allow our emotions to get us into a place that is so steeped in uncertainty and doubt that it causes us to have such severe anxiety and apprehension, and we want to be happy, and we want to get to our fulfillment as quickly as possible. And we want to make sure that once we discover our purpose, or if we know what it takes for us to ultimately be happy, we want it right now. And not only do we want it right now, we want it sustained, meaning you essentially want a life of no problems, or so little problems that if they do arise, you can handle them very easily. And life, again, is not going to guarantee you the impossible, because that is impossible. You're always going to have issues. You're always going to have problems. You're always going to have things that happens to you that you're not going to be able to predict, and that in real time, you're going to have to detach and say, this is a very fucked up situation, but I have to continue this process. I have to figure out where this goes. I can't just go into a corner, sit down, curl up in the fetal position, and give up. The brave never fall. We don't give up. We move forward. We accept what it is. We learn from it. And if there's someone special in your life, you may have your ups and downs, but you try to do your best to keep them there. If you have a certain career that you love and you're feeling a little disrespected, or there's a cap on it, you don't always have to run. Maybe you just need to change careers. Maybe you need to talk to your boss. You can do whatever it is, but you just don't not work. You don't go into it saying, that's it, I'm never getting a job again. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Regardless if you're working for that boss or some other boss, you still have to go to work. You have to do something. Or maybe you don't have to do something. Maybe in your life, you don't want to do anything. You have to see that process out as well. You have to commit to wherever it is that you signed up for. Or otherwise, what was the point of the unconditional commitment in the first place if you're going to unconditionally break the conditions? If you're going to say, I'm going to unconditionally love you unconditionally until I unconditionally don't want to. That's a mouthful. That's a lot of distraction. That is a lack of discipline. That is a lack of understanding, a lack of empathy for the people around you. It's a lack of understanding and commitment to the process of what you want from life. If at the very first sign of trouble, you're ready to run, you're ready to throw away, you're ready to smear the black ink, and you're ultimately prepared and ready to be alone, because if you burn enough bridges doing that with workplaces, it's going to be very hard for you to find a job. You do that enough in relationships, it's going to be very hard for you to know what it's like to actually get through a prolonged process with a relationship if you're so eager to get to ultimate happiness in a short amount of time, having not earned it and not gone through the fire, not gone through the gauntlet. Life is always going to test us. Life will continue to test us, but if we can look at those tests as an opportunity to grow, to adapt, to evolve, to actually be able to see who, what, and where all these things are to come into place and line up for us in a good balance for our lives, for us individually, so we can be the best person we can be for ourselves internally, so externally we can be the best we can for other people, places, and things in our life. We have to take it all in to understand what we truly can endure, what we truly can turn around. Unconditionally loving the things that we know are going to lead us to our purpose and a life of fulfillment. Our lives have never been perfect. They aren't perfect now, and they never will be perfect. But we have to hold on to the things that are closest to perfection as we possibly can get, especially if we love them unconditionally. Your mission for today is to imagine yourself without all your hardships. Strip away every single bad thing that happened in your life. Strip away every relationship you've ever had. Strip away everything that had an appearance or had you in a mind state of failure at that time. disappointment, or something bad has happened to you, you strip it all away and try to imagine your life with nothing but just the good things, meaning any one thing that happened to you in your life that was super positive and that did not have one bad element to it. Keep those, but take everything else and throw them away and see if you can visualize yourself doing that. How many memories do you have? How many relationships and situations, people, places, and things are in your life where over the course of time, not one bad thing has happened? Imagine yourself being in a place where only the good things in life happen to you, not one bad thing happened, and try to imagine what your life would be like. Who would you be? So this mission is all about being in your head and try to connect emotionally to a life of complete and utter perfection, where you didn't make any mistakes. Try to imagine your life like that and see where your mind goes. See how you get to that place. How do you connect to something like that? And is it even possible to imagine yourself having lived a life without any mistakes? Having lived a life of just pure perfection, happiness, and joy, without any sadness, without any hardships? How would you be? What would define you? What would your values and your morals and principles be without having faced all of the things that you had to overcome? This is your day. You are here now. These are your moments. You own them. You are brave, bold, powerful. You do believe in yourself. You know you have more in the tank. You know the glass is half full. There's still more room for improvement. There is no end. Believe, believe, believe in yourself. Trust yourself. Trust that you can do whatever it takes to accomplish whatever you want from life. You don't procrastinate. You don't embellish. You don't lie. You are true to yourself. Knowledge is in your mind. Peace is in your heart. Balance is in your body. Purpose is in your soul. You are greatness. The sky is not the limit. You have purpose, fulfilling, intentful purpose. You are here for a reason. You are unique. You are self-love, self-discipline, self-respect, self-control. You have self-awareness. You are joy, peace, happiness. You are freedom. And yet you are connected to every person, place, and thing in the universe. And if no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Salute to you all. The brave never fall. Learn, laugh, and level up.